Welcome to the 2011 Nashville Civic Design Center's Living the Plan of Nashville Luncheon. My name is Mary Pat Teague, and I'm honored to say that I am the president of the Board of Directors of the Design Center. And I say I'm honored because being the president has given me the privilege of being part of and witnessing firsthand the amazing work of the Design Center and our outrageous staff. And we've had a tremendous year. So to tell you the truth, I honestly think when I look back on it, I don't think that there's a way to adequately thank our staff of Julia Landstreet, Gary Gaston, Stephanie McCullough, Ron Yearwood, Patricia Conway for all their hard work and the success we've had this particular year. Another integral part of the success of the Design Center are my fellow board members who offer their intellectual and creative capital to the process. But this is really no surprise because our current board is so strong, because the Design Center has a tradition of strong board, which is evident by the list of our, particularly our list of our past presidents, who, if you know who they are, know that they are among the who's who's of committed Nashvillians. So thank you both to our past and current board members. Now to the really important reason that I'm up here today. It's to thank all of you for joining us. Obviously, there would be no luncheon without you, and your support for the Design Center is very much appreciated. So let me say it again, thank you to all of you for being here today. Well, you can clap for yourselves. There also would be no luncheon today without the dedicated work of our two co-chairs, Judy Steele and Cyril Stewart. Judy and Cyril's resume of community involvement are well known throughout Nashville, and their commitment to the Design Center is also greatly appreciated. Cyril and Judy, if you wouldn't mind standing, I'd like to offer you an appropriate round of applause. I would also like to say a special thank you to our Keystone sponsors who are here with us today, and also in particular to our Cornerstone sponsors, Edge, Bristol Development Group, the City Paper, Earl Swenson Associates, Nash Vitality, Tuck Hinson Architects, and the educational quartet of Tennessee State University, the University of Tennessee College of Architecture and Design, Vanderbilt University, and Vanderbilt University Medical Center. Thank you very much for that. And finally, a very special thanks of appreciation to our presenting sponsor, Healthcare REIT. When they were asked to be a sponsor of this event, they immediately stepped up because they get it. They understand how important civic design is to the future of Nashville, and they are clearly committed to Nashville's future. So thank you very much, Healthcare REIT. So I think I've thanked everybody in the room. So at this point, I am pleased to turn the podium over to a fellow board member, Hal Clark, who is going to speak on behalf of Healthcare REIT. Hal?
Thank you, Mary Pat. Ryan Doyle, who's the leader of the Nashville office of Healthcare REIT, and our sponsor today, is unable to be here, but he asked me to say a few words of introduction and thank you to everyone here. I'd also like to recognize a couple of people from Healthcare REIT that are here. Norman Dietrich and Tim Myers are here in the room, and I encourage you, if you have a minute, to say hello to these guys before you leave. But I've had the privilege to work with Healthcare REIT and these guys for about the last year and a half on one of their most recent projects called One City. It's to be located near the new 28th Avenue Connector project that Mayor Dean broke ground on earlier this year. And when I was working with Healthcare REIT and as a board member of the Civic Design Center, I have to say there's one thing that these two groups have in common, that it is an understanding that a truly healthy community is greatly impacted by the built environment and by civic spaces and by public infrastructure. And the reason I bring up the One City project is because it's being designed with the total commitment to building healthy communities. And you know, we're excited about that as well. And it's planned to be a model of how to integrate health and wellness with innovative technology and economic development and total sustainability into a vibrant downtown neighborhood. And I think we as a city are very fortunate to have projects like this and some other projects around the city, and the continued commitment from this administration for these philosophies, because I truly believe that the city of Nashville can be a really great model for healthy living, for community health and sustainability, if we continue to work together to actually live the plan of Nashville. The Nashville Civic Design Center is a critical component to the continuing effort of finding what great things this city can be. And I know Healthcare REIT is excited to be a part of some of those innovative and creative design solutions. So again, I want to thank them for choosing this event to sponsor. But now it's my privilege to introduce the Nashville Civic Design Center's design director, Mr. Gary Gaston, to say a few words as well. Gary.
Thank you, Hal. And I want to thank all of you again for coming today. This year marks the 10th year anniversary of the Nashville Civic Design Center. It has been a dynamic and exciting decade for Nashville, and we look forward to the next 10 years of helping shape our wonderful city. Each year we gather at this luncheon to celebrate the plan of Nashville, to acknowledge the tremendous process that unfolded over the course of 2.5 years and brought together more than 800 Nashvillians in a series of 50 public meetings and workshops. The process created a vision for how our citizens want their city to look and function in the future, and established a series of guiding principles to accomplish the plan's vision. Here are several of the programs and projects of the past year from the Civic Design Center that are implementing the plan of Nashville. Since February 2010, the center has been working with the Metropolitan Planning Organization and the Tennessee Department of Transportation on numerous projects related to visionary transportation and land use planning ideas in Nashville. The work has resulted in 5 products: connecting people to places, healing the pikes, reclaiming public space, developing with transit, and enhancing bridges. Each report provides guidance on how our city can grow over the next 25 years. The center is currently finalizing work related to this grant with a book entitled Moving Tennessee Forward: Models for Connecting Communities, which is scheduled to be published in November. I'm excited to report our partnership with the MPO on these projects will continue to be a part of the center's work in the upcoming year. We will be working with the UT College of Architecture and Design to target specific sites within Nashville that illustrate the MPO's principles of livability, prosperity, sustainability, and diversity. Over the past 18 months, the Design Center has worked with the Metro Nashville Arts Commission to develop a long-term process for selecting sites for public art throughout Davidson County. This was based on research using maps, case studies, and public input meetings. In January, we published the Nashville-Davidson County Public Art Book that includes 41 potential sites for public art. In May, the Civic Design Center released the Livability Project Report. Working in conjunction with Vice Mayor Diane Neighbors and the Metropolitan Development and Housing Agency, we hosted public meetings in the Madison and Sylvan Park communities that focused on the qualities that make a community livable, and created a checklist for how Nashville's communities can begin to implement livability principles. In July, the Design Center released In Search of a New Home for the Sounds, a report that synthesizes past studies and public input conducted by the Design Center. The report includes work produced by UT architecture students last fall, led by Mark Schiminti, former design director and UT professor, for the Sulphur Dell and North Gulch sites. The report is intended to aid in the efforts of determining a future site for the new Sounds baseball stadium, a study that is currently well underway. This summer, the Design Center also released a report exploring the concept of creating new public schools in downtown, including an elementary school and an arts magnet high school. Both were ideas from the Plan of Nashville. The report includes a new case studies from Chattanooga and Memphis that illustrate the success recent elementary schools have had in spurring downtown redevelopment, residential redevelopment in those cities. This fall, UT professor Barbara Klinkhammer is working with the Design Center on student projects for a new elementary school in Sobro. Last November, the Design Center was notified that we had received a grant from the National Endowment for the Arts to fund a program we entitled Design Your Neighborhood. This grant was one of only 21 awarded in the nation in the Access to Artistic Excellence Design Innovation category, and we were the only nonprofit in the South that received this grant. Design Your Neighborhood featured an intensive 4-week program that engaged predominantly inner-city minority youth on the topics of architecture, urban design, planning, graphic design, and filmmaking. Youth learned and experienced design excellence through educational sessions, field trips, and design charrettes. The product of the grant is a documentary movie that is currently being edited from over 50 hours of footage shot this summer by filmmaker Carolyn McDonald, who is in the audience with us today. The movie will be used as a tool to teach design to high school students both locally and nationally. This innovative program involved a partnership with the Watkins College of Art, Design, and Film and the Oasis Center. The documentary movie will be shown at a special viewing and screening event early next year, but today I'm thrilled to present to you for the very first time publicly the trailer for Design Your Neighborhood.
It was really about exploring the city and opening up their imaginations to see things and see what's possible in the city with the buildings and the public spaces and meeting with people. We met with the mayor and the vice mayor and really engaged them in the process of how things happen in the city.
I just like the fact that I was able to go around Nashville and see like the places that they have now, and then knowing like getting to know the historical background behind it.
There's so many things you can do in one place and it can make a total difference.
I like it because I get a chance to design the neighborhood the way I want it.
Why you should care about design, and it's not just for the rich or for the well-educated or whatever. It's all around us, and how you perceive your space and how you can be a change in your environment.
What would you want to see in the neighborhood that you lived in, and how could it be made better?
The thank you. We are very excited about this project, and make sure you stay tuned for the event, which will be happening probably in January at Watkins for the screening of the full film. The Design Center's partnership with the University of Tennessee College of Architecture and Design continues to be a strong catalyst for promoting innovative design ideas for new projects in Nashville. As faculty members, Stephanie McCullough and I get to work closely with professors from UT to determine relevant and important project ideas that will help affect positive change in Nashville. Associate Professor and former design director T.K. Davis focuses the work of his design studio classes extensively and exclusively, in Nashville. These projects typically involve 15 students working over the course of 3.5 months, with visits to Nashville 4 times during the course of the semester for site tours and design reviews. The studio work represents a significant time contribution from UT faculty and students. For the first time this past summer, the Design Center hosted a full-time design studio in Nashville for UT students based at the Design Center. I'm thrilled to report plans are already being made for this next summer's studio. Finally, I want to encourage you all to visit the Design Center throughout the coming year to see in person the wonderful work we are doing. Please attend one of our urban design forums, which meets the 3rd Thursday of each month, and visit our website to find out more about the projects you have heard about today. The program you have in front of you provides a broad overview of our work during the past year. Please take it with you and share it with your friends. Again, thank you all for coming today and supporting the Design Center over the past decade. We look forward to a wonderful coming 10 years. Now, it's also my pleasure to introduce the mayor of our great city. Mayor, your leadership on sustainability, transportation, health, and the other numerous issues affecting our built environment has so impressed us during your tenure. I look forward to working with you for 4 more years of wonderful, exciting growth in Nashville. Please help me welcome our mayor, the Honorable Carl Dean.
Thank you, Gary, and thank you for inviting me to be here today to celebrate a healthy vision for Nashville. And thank you to the Nashville Civic Design Center and all its partners for the work you have done creating and living the plan of Nashville over the past 8 years. Less than 2 weeks ago, when I was sworn in for a second term, I said that this second term is going to be about what we as a city have to do to be successful. And for me, that means that we have to focus on making our city healthy in every sense of the word. We need a healthy economy, healthy schools, and healthy neighborhoods. It also means being physically healthy, and that is an area where our city and state is not where it needs to be. But what can local government do to improve the health of our citizens? Well, there are 2 main things. We can help create an environment that supports active living, and 2, we can help build a culture that inspires activity and healthy eating. When it comes to creating a healthy environment, our city has made significant investments in recent years, which to me is a clear statement about our commitment to this issue given our current economy. In our current fiscal year's capital spending plan alone, we have allocated the following: over $3 million for the expansion of our greenways, $5 million for the acquisition of open space, $3 million for bikeways, $12.5 million for sidewalks, and funds for new community centers in Sevier Park and in Antioch. We are also implementing an expanded bike share program. Right now, community members and visitors can borrow a bike from 16 different locations across the city at no cost through a program called Nashville Green Bikes. These bike stations are directly linked to more than 40 miles of greenways and 94 miles of on-road bike lanes and routes. Implementation is in progress on a kiosk-based bike share system, which will be located primarily in the downtown urban core. The city is also working to make healthy food choices more accessible in neighborhoods that have been designated as food deserts because they lack access to grocery stores with high-quality fresh fruits and vegetables. This effort concentrates on building the capacity for corner stores in partnership with community and faith leaders to offer healthier food options. So those are the key things that we are doing to create an environment where people have more healthy choices. For the second step I mentioned, creating a culture that inspires healthy habits, we've also been doing some work there. Last spring, we launched Nash Vitality with the assistance of a federal grant awarded to our public health department. Nash Vitality's goal is to motivate Nashvillians to make the healthy and easy choice wherever they live, work, worship, and play. Nash Vitality represents the work done by not only the mayor's office and the health department, but also by other organizations, community leaders, and community members that work to make our city healthier. As part of the spirit of a healthy city, I invited all of Nashville to walk 100 miles with me this past spring. The series of walks brought people out from all parts of our city to utilize our greenways and parks. In just 12 weeks, 4,000 people walked over 100,000 miles. To continue this momentum, since early September, I have been training with hundreds of people from all across Nashville for the first ever Mayor's 5K Challenge Walk or Run. And I'm going to take this opportunity to once again recruit you to this event. Hopefully it is burned in your mind by now that on November 13th at 2 o'clock, the walk-run event will take place. It will take place at the Metro Courthouse. It is free. It's on a Sunday. The Titans are out of town. Absolutely no excuses. 5K can sound intimidating, but it's only 3.1 miles, and if you don't want to run, you don't have to run. I think probably the greatest majority of people will be walking. So please join us on November 13th, where we can send a message not only to the citizens of Nashville, but to the people of Tennessee and to the people of this country that Nashville is an active, vital city. And it will be a group message, and it should be a fun event. Our quality of life is largely determined by our communities where we live, work, learn, worship, and play. We eat better when healthy food is more available than junk food and sugary beverages. We move more when we have safe, inviting places nearby to be active. We live longer, healthier lives in these communities. I'm excited about all the great efforts our city and communities are doing to invigorate a healthier Nashville. And I'm excited to be here today as a Civic Design Center, in partnership with the Metro Public Health Department, announced another great project. Over the next 2 years, these two organizations will develop a comprehensive plan of action to transform Nashville called Shaping Healthy Cities, Nashville. Now I'd like to introduce the Executive Director of the Civic Design Center, Julia Landstreet, and the Director of the Metro Public Health Department, Dr. Bill Paul, to share more. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Dean. It's a privilege to work in Nashville and to have a mayor who really is committed to health and to the health of our community, both the physical health, but also just the broad health of the community. It makes my job easier. In public health, I haven't been in public health 100 years yet, but for 100 years we've been talking about fresh air and sunshine, exercise, an apple a day, keeping the doctor away. But somehow, somewhere, we got away from that a little bit, and it's become harder for people to get fresh air and sunshine, get an apple a day, or get regular exercise. And so we've ended up with an epidemic of chronic disease, a lot of it related to, well, we say it's related to obesity, but it's related to the fact that we don't move enough, and we don't eat a healthy diet. So we in public health, we know that personal responsibility is really important to that. But we also don't think that there's been this huge epidemic of personal irresponsibility in the country or in Nashville. We think there are other things, and there are things that we can do to make healthy choices easier for people to make. And that's really kind of the movement in public health, and what the mayor's been working on, and what we're talking about with our efforts now is what can we do throughout Nashville to make the healthy choice the easy choice. And that focuses on motivating and inspiring people. That's important. That's part of what we're about. It is also about policies and systems and the environment. And the built environment is kind of a big reason we're here today about how do we make Nashville's built environment as healthy as possible. There's been a lot going on in Nashville. You see it, and it's an exciting place to be in terms of that movement towards healthier food, towards healthier places. We're excited to be part of that. We also got an opportunity from CDC with the Communities Putting Prevention to Work grant, and we're in the last 6 months of the grant now. But it is aiming to give a boost to the things that are going on in Nashville that are moving us towards a healthier, more active city. And so there's a variety of things, some of them mentioned by the mayor, some things that you may not realize we're doing, but a whole variety of things trying to make it easier for people to be active in Nashville. So yes, the green bikes, the healthy corner stores, but also working in neighborhoods on spay and neuter programs so there's less dogs running at large, because people won't go out, won't let their kids play outside if there's dogs running loose. We've been working with schools. Schools have been doing a lot of work on school food. You've maybe seen something in the newspaper in the last week on that. We've helped a little bit, but there's clearly movement forward in school food. Work sites, where we work really shapes our health in a big way. Certainly at our work site this morning, we were training for the 5K, Mr. Mayor. We're going to be ready. Not all of us, but some of us. We're going to be ready. But also, we're very conscious of healthy workplace as we make plans for our new building. With actually Gresham Smith is working with us on design right now of a new building. How do you make a health department building really exude health and demonstrate health? So there's a lot of things going on. You'll hear more. We've put them under this brand of Nash Vitality, which is really a celebration of everything that's going on in Nashville that moves us towards a healthier, more active and greener city. And we hope you're excited about that, because we sure are. And we feel like we're in a good position. In the long run, the more we think about health, there are more opportunities to make healthier choices easier. And so what we put as one project in the Communities Putting Prevention to Work grant is this idea of a Healthy Places plan. For Nashville, how do we put together the kind of a guide? What do we know about health in the built environment? What are the real concrete steps, the things that we're doing well in Nashville? What are the things that we could do better in Nashville to move towards a healthier environment, both in terms of the built environment, in terms of individual buildings, in terms of community design. Now, obviously, there's a lot already going on here, but this particular opportunity gives us a chance to really focus on that and give us some practical ways of moving forward and thinking about health as we make decisions about building the city. So I'm excited to be here. I'm glad to be part of this, and I'm going to introduce Julia Landstreet, the Executive Director of the Civic Design Center.
Thank you. Thank you all very much for being here. We can't even begin to tell you how excited we are to have you all here and how excited we are to announce this project. It was about a 9, almost 12-month courtship period between us and the health department until we were all able to articulate our goals, and we are just very excited. It just says it all. The mission of the Nashville Civic Design Center is to elevate the quality of the built environment and to promote public participation in the process. 8 years ago, the citizens of Nashville guided the creation of the Plan of Nashville, and embedded within the plan are the 10 principles, and they are the benchmark under which we guide our work. It's a 50-year plan, but they are timeless guideposts. The project we're announcing today has potentially the same scope of vision and breadth of impact as the Plan of Nashville, with 2 easily identifiable differences. First, the process of the creation of the plan involved 2.5 years of charrettes and meetings and the involvement of over 800 citizens. Nashville's citizenry has continued meeting and thinking ever since, and public input and visionary thought has gone on to generate over 130 plans, initiatives, and visions. They address greenways, public art, riverfront redevelopment, complete streets, mass transit, community gardens, public safety, open space, zoning codes, tree canopy, bike lanes, You name it. You all have met, thought about it, and been thoughtful in the products. And you were all really responsible for their creation. Probably everyone in this room participated in one way or another. Shaping Healthy Nashville will take your hard work and clarify how they impact the health of our city, how our physical, mental, spiritual health and well-being are impacted by these policies. For example, you've outlined how an increased tree canopy can reduce heat island effect, reduce asthma, stormwater mitigation impacts, feelings of isolation, etc. Increased access to transit leads to increased use of transit, and we know that this leads to increased physical activity, which in turn leads to increased health. You've done that. We know that. Secondly, this project will contain an action plan, clearly identified strategies and opportunities for change that we can use going forward whenever a decision is made to change the functional fabric of our city. One example, which is my example, and I am not the author of the book, is money we spend on roads. For the sake of numbers, let's say $500,000. For $500,000, we can put down a strip of asphalt that moves cars and delivery trucks from point A to point B. But what if we took that same $500,000 and instead we installed aesthetically and functionally conceived infrastructure that can accommodate cars, delivery trucks, mass transit, pedestrians, cyclists, and address stormwater mitigation as well? That's not a dream. It's when policy meets design. It's what we strive to do every day, and everyone here strives to do. It has made Nashville and Middle Tennessee the vibrant and thriving region that it is. We are excited to be off and running on the project. Our steering committee rivals any dream team someone has put together for fantasy football. And once a month, we'll be hosting a brown bag City Think lunch to discuss and digest some of the other ideas that have been proposed around the world. Our website contains tons of great information, and we look forward to keeping you all up to date in what we're doing. Thank you, Mayor Dean and Dr. Paul, for your support and participation in this project. It's an exciting time to be thinking about Nashville and Middle Tennessee and who we are and where we want to go and what we want it to look like when we get there. Diana Lind is a dynamic, strong voice in this same conversation around the country and around the world. You can find her full biography and a brief statement in your program. And Gary deleted this part, but I trust your all's gift of literacy and ability to read that. He cut that out. Gary's had the opportunity to meet Diana when he participated in the Next American Vanguard Fellowship Program last year, and he was really struck by her ability to recognize and promote sharp talent, as well as her ability to give voice to ideas being generated around the country. Diana is currently editor-at-large for Next American City and editor-in-chief for Forefront. I am pleased to introduce you to Diana Lind.
Thank you for that kind introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm honored to be here, inspired by all the work that's going on, and a little bit envious that you have a mayor who gets it. So congratulations on all of that. It's exciting that Nashville is thinking about becoming a healthier city in the context of planning. Oh, there we go. All right. Because planning's origins are really in thinking about public health issues. You think back to Baron Haussmann in Paris in the 1800s. He was in charge of public works for the city, but his mission as sort of a planner for the city was really also to figure out how to rid the city of infectious diseases. So he regulated the sewer system, built broader boulevards, and so on. But as mentioned earlier, we've forgotten certain principles of basic connections between planning and public health. But we're coming back to that because we're seeing that our challenges are really changing in our cities. We're no longer worrying about things like overcrowding, as we did, let's say, on the Lower East Side a century ago, but in fact, we're trying to make cities more dense. We're thinking about how to organize cities in a different way, no longer trying to separate residential commercial and industrial uses, but in fact trying to create spaces like the Lower East Side today, which are 24-hour zones where people can participate in all different kinds of activities throughout the day. And the other reason why we've been focusing on this connection between planning and public health is that there's a ton of research and information that has informed us to realize that there are various social, economic, and environmental aspects of cities, such as air quality, access to public space or lack thereof, access to employment or lack thereof, food access, social support, and so on, that these all have huge impacts on the health of people. So, for example, we know that it's not just allergens in a home, but violence, or let's say living near a major highway intersection that can cause a greater chance of developing childhood asthma, or that job strain is linked to poor cardiovascular health, that low and unstable income predicts worse cognitive, physical, and psychological functioning over time, or that experiencing discrimination is a risk factor for psychological distress and high blood pressure. So we realize that the aspects of a person's physical surroundings are intimately involved with their health outcomes over time. So in other words, you aren't just what you eat, but where you live. But what are we talking about when we talk about health? The World Health Organization defines health as a state of complete physical, social, and mental well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. Taking that further, the 1986 Ottawa Charter for Health Promotion expanded on this definition and said that it was the ability of an individual or a group to identify and to realize aspirations, to satisfy needs, and to change or cope with the environment. So these broader definitions of health go beyond just thinking about health as a measure of a lifespan, but really the way that we're able to satisfy our life goals. So the question then to all of us is, how do we create these vibrant places that people can live in, learn in, start a business, and so on? And that how can we do that in such a way that just doesn't create healthy individuals, but creates a healthy urban form, a place that is economically vibrant, that is socially just, and is environmentally sustainable? That's a little bit of a sense of what that's like. When I was doing a lot of research for this talk, I kept on coming back to the USDA because it has so much information, and looking at public health movements over time. And the USDA first started giving nutritional information out in 1894. About a century later, it published the food pyramid, which is the sort of infographic that I grew up with. Now there's this infographic of My Plate, which seems to be sort of organized around the 4 food groups. But I began to think that, we really need to have a similar kind of pyramid or infographic for how we create cities. What are our choices? What are the healthy choices that we can make for cities in terms of transit, commercial corridors, housing, and so on. Well, I'm not the USDA, so I'm just one person, and I started to think about this and came up with 4 areas of opportunity, sort of the 4 food groups, if you will, of creating healthy cities. It's not super comprehensive, but I hope that there's a bunch of different ideas here that will be relevant to the work that you're doing. So these 4 areas for impact that I've come up with are housing, transportation, green space, and food access. So perhaps calling it housing is not really what we should be doing anymore. We really need to be thinking not just of building residential space, but of building walkable communities. When you think of healthy housing, probably the words brownfield in the South Bronx is not what comes to mind. But I want to talk about a really interesting project there that some of you may have seen. It was profiled in the Times 1 or 2 weeks ago. And it's a project called Via Verde. It's a 300,000 square foot complex rising on 1.5 acres of remediated brownfield. That includes 222 units, 151 of which are reserved for low-income residents. And from the moment that this project began, it sort of was an exemplary project. And I bring it up because it also started with a design competition, and we're here in a room focused on design. So in 2004, the New York AIA started a competition called New Housing in New York. And it was a program that not only was sponsored by the design community, but involved city agencies, academia, private developers, and so on. And so they had this design competition to develop prototypes for affordable, sustainable development in 3 different neighborhoods in New York. And it was a very successful and exciting project, but none of the projects were built because it was just an ideas competition. But the next step then was 2 years later, the city identified a space in the South Bronx that was a brownfield site, and they offered to remediate it, deal with an out-of-use rail line, and also do the proper rezoning for the site. The private developer for the winning design team, Jonathan Rose, said something that I think is really relevant and gets to this point about moving beyond just housing as shelter. He said, our goal was to go beyond developing just a green building and create a green community, focusing on the quality of life of the families who will live in it. If we are to create vibrant, denser cities, we need models that integrate housing and health, food and family, security and sociability, reflection and restoration as integrated systems. So we have to think of housing as an opportunity to increase social ties, increase health outcomes, improve health outcomes, and really think of it as also an environmental opportunity. So how is this healthy housing? In a variety of different ways, and I hope it doesn't bore you too much, but for starters, it's affordable, which is a huge aspect of thinking about the health of housing. And it's something that we don't really always think about, that healthy housing would be, the very economic factors of dealing with housing would have an impact on the way that people live. So according to enterprise community partners, families paying an excessive amount of their income for housing often have insufficient funds remaining to meet other essential needs, such as food, medical insurance, and healthcare. And these trade-offs most often affect the children. So several studies have found that children in low-income families that do not receive housing subsidies are more likely to suffer from iron deficiencies, malnutrition, underdevelopment than similar families that are receiving housing assistance. And there's an emerging body of evidence growing that it's not just these drastic cases of financial instability related to housing that create unhealthy outcomes, that things like just difficulty of keeping up with mortgage payments or home repairs are linked to lower levels of psychological well-being and a greater likelihood of seeing a doctor. The housing also promotes healthy living. It has on-site bicycle storage areas, windowed and wide stairwells that suggest to people to take the stairs and not the elevator, roof gardens where tenants and co-op owners can grow their own fruits and vegetables. And rather than have just a corner store in its retail space, it has a health center. So health access is immediately built into the building. The complex is also highly sustainable in terms of having rainwater harvesting systems, solar panels, et cetera. But the final aspect of a healthy housing market, and which relates back to the economic health of a city in and of itself, is that this project actually has a market. So there's 71 co-ops that are for sale, and 800 families have already applied to buy them. So I think that that goes to show you that there is really a market for this kind of incredibly integrated housing. But a project like Via Verde is really focused on a sort of walkable, transit-oriented city. And I think that that's really where many of our communities need to be going if we're going to be improving and increasing activity among people within them. How many people here know of WalkScore? Has anyone seen that? Okay, a couple of people, actually, a bunch. Well, WalkScore is an interesting website which basically you plug in any different address and it will give you a score from 0 to 100 about all the various different amenities that are available, and essentially it calculates how walkable that particular address is. So this is right here at the Hilton, and it's actually a really walkable neighborhood, it seems. According, there's a school nearby, there's restaurants, there's shops, parks, etc. Why is walkability so important to health? It's apparently the most important outcome in terms of most correlated outcome related to obesity. So for example, for every 30 minutes spent in a car each day, you have a 3% higher chance of being obese. And conversely, if you walk half a mile each day, that will result in a 5% lower chance of being obese. So what this means is that for your average white male living in a compact community with access to services and shops, you're expected to weigh 10 pounds less than a similar male living in a residential-only cul-de-sac subdivision. This is especially important as we've been talking about obesity as an issue for both Nashville and the state of Tennessee. When you look at this obesity statistics for the whole country, it's amazing to see where we were just 20, 30 years ago. In 1985, less than 10% of Tennessee adults were obese. Now the number is more than 30%. In 2008, 27.3% of Davidson County adults were physically inactive. And this is such a huge issue that the Association of the American Public Health Association, it has 4 legislative priorities for 2011, along with things like defending the Affordable Care Act. One of them is ensuring comprehensive transportation reform, because there is such a close relationship between transportation and health. So there is some good news for Nashville in that the American Community Survey, which looks at commuting over time and looked at commuting between 2000 and 2009, it showed that transit use in Nashville was up 21% in that period. The bad news is that it's still only 2% of Nashville people are commuting by transit. So more than 90% of people use their cars, and only 1.5% of commuters are walking or biking to work. So while I know that both the CDC and the city are working on comprehensive plans to think about bus rapid transit and light rail, there's a lot of things that we can do in the interim while these bigger transit plans are being built to increase the activity of people in the meantime. First of all, we need to think of alternatives to just driving to work every day. And that doesn't necessarily mean having to have a new transportation system to do that. Julia mentioned the importance of the intersection of policy and design. There's a number of different programs in places like Baltimore and DC that have developed projects called something along the lines of live near your work. They have various different names. But essentially the city matching funds of their own with sometimes employers will pay up to, let's say, $6,000 a year to encourage people to move within 2 miles of where they work or within a quarter mile of a qualifying transportation stop. And this is a great program not only so that people actually start just either walking or biking or taking transportation to work for their own physical activity, but it also relieves congestion, which is a particularly big issue in the Baltimore and DC corridor. The mayor mentioned the new bike programs that Nashville is working on. And again, this is another thing. You don't need to have a huge new transportation infrastructure to be able to build on the density that already exists here. So if we have this walkable downtown in Nashville, it's a the obvious place to be actually implementing some kind of bike sharing pilot. So, and we've seen that, in cities that are not enormous sizes, that these bike sharing pilots have been incredibly successful. So, for example, in DC, they just launched a bike sharing pilot last year. In 1 year, over $2 million was raised in revenues from member fees, from overage fees, and so on. And a millionth ride was just taken last week. And the sign that it's been successful is that it's not only expanding within DC, this bike sharing program, it's moving into these various other suburbs that are requesting to have the expansion of the program. So the little walkable centers in places like Bethesda or Arlington, Rockville, that are around DC are actually requesting to increase the biking there. And then lastly, thinking about transportation as not just a way to get from place to place, A to B, but in fact a major economic development opportunity that has potential to do not only economic good for the region, but social good. So for example, I was just talking last night with Gary about the ring road around Nashville and said, has anybody thought of creating sort of like an Atlanta Beltline there? And the Atlanta Beltline, for those of you who don't know of it, is a 22-mile transportation project, essentially to build a light rail system within an existing rail corridor. That is expected to create $20 billion in new economic development, use 44,000 acres of currently underutilized industrial land, and build mixed income, mixed use developments in areas that are currently really underserved both by economic development and transit access. So transportation infrastructure is crucial to any part of any city, and there's a reason why we call transportation, call streets arterials. It's because we think of transportation in a sense as the blood system within our city. If streets and transportation is our blood system, then parks would be our lungs. And literally, parks help to improve the air quality in our cities, removing pollutants from the atmosphere. In Atlanta, for example, 19 million pounds of pollutants are removed each year just by the city's trees, performing a service that is estimated to be worth about $47 million. Moreover, there are tons of health studies that show that contact with nature, pleasing landscapes, plants, animals have tremendous health benefits, from everything to reducing the amount of time that it takes to recover from a heart attack, to improving a number of different disorders like attention deficit disorder or behavioral disorders. What's exciting is that right now many cities are thinking not just of building parks as a patch of grass, but actually thinking about how to take the city's worst deficits and turn them into their greatest assets. So, for example, rethinking the simplest things, just like a road, closing it off to traffic. In San Francisco, Golden Gate Park experimented with just one day closing a major road within Golden Gate Park to traffic. It increased the number of people willing to go to the park by 216% and is estimated to actually increase the number of park visitors each year by almost 3 million people. At a much more ambitious level, we're seeing cities like Dallas rethink their highways, actually. I don't know if you can see here, but that park is essentially straddling a major freeway that runs down the center of Dallas. And it's being developed by a public-private partnership. It's a 5.2-acre park that will have restaurants, music venues, areas for children, water features, and so on. And the purpose of the park is not just to create a green space. It's an opportunity for Dallas to say that we're not going to be a car-only kind of city, that in fact we can have a walkable downtown, and this will connect uptown, downtown, and the Arts District through pedestrian, trolley use, bicycle use, and so on. So the healthiest parks that we're seeing aren't ones that just give places for people to relax and play, but are ones that are really multitasking for the city. They're increasing the vitality of their neighborhoods and serving as an economic development tool. Last but certainly not least, I just want to talk about access to fresh food, because it is such a huge issue when we think about developing healthy cities. In hundreds of neighborhoods around the country, the act of just getting fresh food is not an easy thing to do. A 2009 study by the USDA found that 23.5 million people lack access to a supermarket within a mile from their home. And a recent study found that low-income census tracts had half as many supermarkets as wealthy tracts, that 8% of African Americans live in a tract with a supermarket compared to 31% of whites, and that, again, lack of access to supermarkets is correlated with obesity. And studies have also shown that just merely creating space for fresh produce in many of our stores can actually encourage people to eat some fresh fruit and vegetables. So in New Orleans, for example, they found that just adding 10 feet of shelf space dedicated to vegetables resulted in neighborhood residents eating an additional serving of vegetables per day. So when you think about just 10 feet of fresh food, imagine what a farmer's market could do for cities. And it's interesting, another USDA stat that I found is that they look at the number of farmers markets by state, and Tennessee has just over 1 farmers market per 100,000 people, compared with a national average of around 3, or a state like Vermont, which has 13 farmers markets per 100,000 people. So it's a simple way, ostensibly, to create greater food access and really influence the kind of food that people are eating. And also, farmers markets have been found to increase the economic development of the area that holds that market. Often 60% or so people will go to an additional store on their way to or from the market. But if we can't have farmers markets in every neighborhood, we're seeing really interesting projects like this mobile fresh food truck, which will essentially bring the farmers market to underserved neighborhoods and allow people to pay not only with cash but with EBT or SNAP credits to pay for their food that way. My last case study is one based in Philadelphia, where I am from, which is a really amazing example of leadership coming together and dealing with this food access problem. It's called the Fresh Food Financing Initiative. And essentially what is done is taken $30 million in government funds and matched that with $120 million more in grants and loans from private sources to develop about 83 new supermarkets in low-income and underserved areas in Pennsylvania. And these range from everything like a huge supermarket where Michelle Obama was to a 900-square-foot Korean grocer, which is not too far away from where I live. And now it has new HVAC equipment, new refrigeration equipment, and they're able to sell more fresh produce there. It's been found that, in fact, just having a supermarket in a low-income neighborhood will raise the value of those houses there. So for your typical $50,000 house in Philadelphia in a low-income neighborhood, having a supermarket within a half a mile will add another $1,000 to $1,500 to the house price. So it's examples like the Fresh Food Financing Initiative and Via Verde those are the ones that are really exciting and I think pushing cities forward in terms of the way that we think about health. They leverage the collaborative action of so many different city actors and really require both leadership vision and courage to take on a lot of these issues. When I was preparing for this speech, I got lost in sort of an internet shuffle of things like the Atkins diet and the Nordic track, and just ended up going back down memory lane of our country's sort of health fads over the past 20 years. And the interesting thing about many of them is that there's always this sense that all you need to do is give up bread and you will never, gain weight or something like that, or just buy one piece of equipment. And much in the same way as being a healthy person is a very complicated issue, creating a healthy city is going to be a complicated task. But there was one little piece of that 80s fitness fad that stuck with me, which was the Nike saying, just do it. And I think that there is something actually valid in that, which is that we can make excuses for why we aren't getting out of our cars or getting better produce in our supermarkets or whatever, but the challenge is up to us to actually go ahead and do these things. So I hope that some of these ideas have introduced you to different projects that are going on around the country, and I have no doubt that among all of you who have the talent and vision to bring some great new changes to Nashville. So thank you.
I'd like to thank you all so much for coming. There is a young designers group this afternoon meeting with Diana from 3 to 5 at the Design Center, which will be followed by a reception with our favorite corporate beverage sponsor, Yazoo, fully present. I look forward to seeing you there, and thank you all so much for coming.